Welcome back into the show. We're now joined with Miss Jenna Franks, who is an attorney with Steinbacher, Goodall Yurchak. Also, Kristen Doherty, who is the long-term planner and a certified Medicaid planner with the agency. Thank you, ladies, for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
So we were kind of chatting a little bit in the break about the concept of power of attorney. I feel like that term kind of gets used loosely, and people maybe don't always know exactly what that could mean. And you say it kind of matters whenever you're deciding on, a concept like that. Can you kind of break down and explain the importance of a power of attorney, a POA?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so a lot of us assume, or are able to make our own decisions, but there might come a time in our life that we're not able to make our own decisions. So it's really important to have in writing who's able to do that for you if that time comes. Now, of course, we hope that time never comes, but with we see a lot more dementia diagnosis, a lot more other cognitive impairments. So it's really important to have that, because without that document, it's really left up to question who's able to make decisions and what kind of decisions could be made on your behalf. One thing to add too is a lot of times people think that if they're married, their spouse automatically has the ability to make decisions on their behalf, and that's really not true.
Yeah, so that could get you in kind of a sticky situation, that it would be a trouble to get out of, which is kind of why you guys come into the mix here to help provide some, just information on, because we were talking about the conservatorship, which is basically a guardianship.
Yes.
Now, how is that in connection with a power of attorney? Is that kind of the same thing too, or is that different?
Somewhat. So a guardianship is usually a last resort. So if something happens where you can't make decisions for yourself anymore and you don't have powers of attorney, then your family or your loved ones have to go and petition the court to appoint a guardian.
Okay.
Very similar to like the Britney Spears case and a conservatorship. We call them guardians here in Pennsylvania. And so the reason it's a last resort, though, is because it's a court process. So it's lengthy to kind of get through that. It's costly, and it's kind of in the public, right?
Yeah.
So we really want to avoid that. It's also up to the judge to appoint who's going to be making decisions for you. So we would rather you put powers of attorney in place where you make that decision yourself. It's much less costly, and it's much easier on your family as well.
And what exactly does a power of attorney have, privileges to do?
So it really matters what's in the power of attorney.
Okay.
Because by law in Pennsylvania, your power of attorney can only do what's spelled out in the document they're allowed to do. So it's not so much about just having a document that says power of attorney across the top. It really does matter, what the substance is included in there. But overall, usually your power of attorney has the ability to make financial decisions for you, paying your bills, signing off on checks, things like that.
Yeah.
It could also be bigger things, though, like purchasing or selling real estate, or, withdrawing money out of your accounts. There's also the healthcare side of this, too, though. So it would be like making decisions as far as who your doctors are, or what hospitals or facilities you could be treated at.
Yeah, and we were talking, too, just in pop culture and in movies, the way it's portrayed, obviously it's one of those sticky situations where it easily could be a situation where you're manipulated, because it's typically like a medical diagnosis when they determine, like, okay, mentally this person cannot make decisions for themselves or, handle their finances. That's kind of when this would kind of come into play. Like, who's typically in need of a system like this? Is because you were talking about the elderly, but like Brittany, this kind of could happen to anybody. We were talking about the Gypsy Rose case. It really kind of spans across a lot of different people that could get into this.
Absolutely. We tend to see it a lot with clients who have cognitive decline, obviously, but like dementia, a dementia diagnosis. This could also be like if there was a crisis, like an accident or something, and you have like a traumatic brain injury or just something going on cognitively where you can't make decisions, and it's all of a sudden. So we actually say everybody over the age of 18 should have powers of attorney. Yes, just because you never know when something could come up where you can't make decisions for yourself, whether that's like for a short period of time or a longer period of time.
So they make those decisions on your behalf. And so that's something that we would call you to set something like that up, to determine, okay, this is the person in my life who I want to make these, decisions. And that's a good thing that you mentioned too. You want to list out all those specifics, because when it's written out, it's pretty, dead set and determined there.
Absolutely.
Anything we should know that you want to add, Kristen?
Yeah, sure. I'll just add one thing, that not all powers of attorney are created equal. So you can go online, print off a power of attorney, it's likely not going to work the way that you want it to. So where we really focus on planning for your second half of life. So whatever happens, whether you get sick, whether you pass away, whether, you know, something else comes up unexpected, we really design our documents to address all of those issues, all of those concerns. Because our goal is, once you sign that power of attorney, you're not going to need to update it. It's not going to not work for you. I will say probably at least 90% of the power of attorney documents that we see come into our office that weren't prepared by us aren't going to meet the goals of the clients now that their situation may have changed. So definitely important to make sure you're working with somebody who does what we do as you're planning for your second half of life.
Yes, because say, and you were mentioning too, like the spouse, or, you know, I would say, oh, I guess my mom would just, you just assume that, but that's not exactly the case here. And if something, you know, God forbid, were to happen and you couldn't make a decision, you know, then what happens if that wasn't already established?
Yeah, so
that's kind of
so that's what we run into a lot. So they have a power of attorney, but it doesn't allow them to protect assets. So now we have one spouse in the nursing home, spouse at home. Now we're also worried about that spouse at home, because if we can't do what we need to with that power of attorney, we might not be able to financially protect the spouse at home. So that's why it's so important to make sure your documents really are good enough. It's scary.
Yeah,
it's scary.
Give them a call.
Yeah.
Really, what is the best way to reach you guys or learn more information if people are interested?
Yeah, we can be reached at 1-800-351-8334 or at paeldercouncil.com or on our Facebook at SGY Law.
Perfect. Yes, I've been seeing your billboards. Don't go broke in a nursing home. I'm like, oh, there's my girls. Thank you both so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having us.
And if you missed any of those details, Steinbacher, Goodall, and Yurchak, we'll have those on our website, WTAJ.com. Coming up on the show.